Hey guys, a little bit of an apology in advance. I've been pretty sick the last 2 weeks on and off, so this video is going to have a fair bit of voiceover because while I was working on these projects, quite frankly, I just didn't record myself very much. It's kind of doing me a favor and doing you a favor. You don't want to see that. But what are we talking about today? We are talking about this fine piece of equipment. And no, I don't necessarily just mean the DualSense controller. Yes, it is that. This one in particular is my buddy Mr. Whittier Jones's controller. He started having drift, can't have that, got to get those dubs in Fortnite. So I put in the Gully Kit TMR analog sticks, and I think I found a pretty simplistic way to do it. I'm sold. These are the sticks that I think everyone needs. Similar to Hall Effect, we'll get into that a little bit later, but I'm so convinced this is good and that you should do it. I'm going to show you how to do that I actually did this mod again on my own controller. It's just that good. Just that good of a mod. So we're going to jump into it. I'm going to show you how I replace this with very little tools. You don't really need a lot. You do need to be able to solder, but I think that I got this down to a science after doing a couple so that I can do it and share with you how to do it the simplest way possible. So we're going to go through that, and then I'm going to show you a little bit of gameplay at the end of how it worked. Appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you're thinking. I've also got a pretty special project that's pretty much already done. Got to do some editing for it to show you guys in a couple weeks. Very proud of it. Probably the most ambitious thing that I have ever made with my 3D printer and with my soldering iron. Pretty cool. If you are a member, you actually have already seen it. I posted that as a behind the scene picture for our members. So if you're interested in becoming a member so you can get those kind of updates, hey, it's pretty cheap. All members get it. I think the cheapest here is like $2 and something. Cheaper here than it is on Twitch. And if you're still not convinced to subscribe and give me lots of love, then puppy. What more can I say? All right, let's get on with the video. All right, so starting things off, we are going to have a brand new box of those Gully Kit TMR joysticks I was talking about. I will put a link to everything that you see that I used for the mod. For the most part, information about becoming a member on YouTube, all the stuff I talked about in the intro, I'll put that in the description as well for you guys. So what you need to do first is gently pry on the bottom of the black portion of plastic at the bottom of the controller. I recommend using a thin piece of plastic like this guitar pick that I have here. You could use like a flathead screwdriver if you wanted. Just keep in mind, this is plastic. It will bend and scratch and break. But once you get it released at the bottom, it's actually really easy to just pop it off the rest of the way. Follow up the seam. It will completely snap away, and then there are two protrusions at the very top, so you'll want to kind of pull away from the touchpad to make sure that you don't break those off. Once you get those taken away, there are 4 screws that hold the back plate of the controller together. 2 of them are located at the very bottom of the controller where we just took away that plastic piece. The other 2 are actually underneath the R1 and L1 buttons. Luckily, those pop out pretty easily as well. Still be careful. I still recommend using plastic. They just pop right out, and there you can see those screws underneath there. Fast forwarding to the point where I actually found my screwdriver. Take those 4 out. You'll notice that I am placing them in the order that I took them out. This doesn't matter too much for the actual plastic frame because all 4 of these screws are the same size. So don't fret. I just think this is a good habit to get into if you're going to tear into any electronic, especially if you're going to get kind of invasive and go in there deeply, because you definitely don't want to put a screw that is too long into the wrong spot and run that through a battery or through a motherboard or something and completely ruin your controller. Finish taking out all of those screws, and once you get the last one removed, starting at the bottom again, the back plastic piece will just kind of snap apart. Sometimes you have to give it a little bit of extra love and kind of get something like that pry tool underneath. You'll find 2 clips at the bottom. Make sure that you go ahead and release those. Ask me how I know. I've broken them in the past. But release those and just kind of work your way around the seam that's naturally there. Once you get to the top, it should begin to release and the entire back will come apart. From here, it's pretty straightforward. You're now looking at the plastic housing that holds the rumble motors as well as the mechanism for the adaptive triggers, and a little harness area for the battery. Just pick up the battery, pop that little connector, kind of like a little Lego, as Jerry Rig Everything would say. Just be very careful not to accidentally pull one of those battery cables out of the connector while you're prying on the white piece. Try to stay on the white piece there. If the battery connector were to come out, it's not the end of the world, but it would require a little bit of soldering repair to get it back in there. Underneath the battery, you'll find a screw. Take that screw out, and that's really the only thing that's holding this plastic housing to the motherboard and the front faceplate. Once you get that done, you can lift it up. Just be mindful that right underneath there are 4 cables, one red and one black on either side, that go to those rumble motors. They are not attached to the black. You just want to be careful because they can get hung up. There's also a little ribbon cable that goes to the microphone that will be attached to the bottom of that black piece. I didn't remember that at the beginning, and I didn't tell you when I did the voiceover, and I'm telling you now. Just be careful, that little ribbon connector comes right up. Underneath that are 2 ribbon connectors that run to the adaptive trigger module. They pull straight out of the motherboard by pulling on that blue tab that's attached to them. I recommend that you do not pull on the ribbon cable itself. That does run the risk of damaging it. Pull on the plastic tab, and then there's one more plastic tab at the top that connects to the touch panel on the front plate of the controller. It's just a plastic tab. It is okay to use something like needle nose pliers because they are a little slippery. As long as you're only pulling on that tab, that's fine. It's just plastic. It's not going to damage the ribbon cable. Once you get that released, the only thing that remains connected to the motherboard are those 4 wires that I mentioned earlier, the one red and one black on either side. They are soldered onto the board, and if you're concerned about mixing up what pad they get soldered to, I recommend taking a picture like I did. It's really not that hard to remember, but hey, every little bit helps. Like I said, they're lightly soldered onto the board, so get your soldering iron ready. Pretty much as soon as you touch the soldering iron to the pad, the wire should release, but if it does need a little bit of coaxing, you can use something like a pair of tweezers or even that plastic pry tool you used earlier to help remove it from the motherboard once it heats up. Now that those are disconnected, just pick straight up on the motherboard. The only thing that might catch is just the analog sticks. Once you get that out, flip that bad boy over and take the plastic caps off. You won't be needing those anymore. Once you get those pulled off, then you are looking at our problem. Potentiometer sticks that get drifty, they get dirty, they're kind of ancient. Get those things out of there. Now, you don't necessarily have to have a pair of helping hands like what I'm using here, but it is kind of nice. And don't spend a lot on these. I kid you not, these bad boys are from Harbor Freight and they get the job done. Get that attached or just lay it flat on a soldering mat or whatever your surface is and you're ready to go. Now comes for the fast-forwarded fun for your viewing pleasure and so that you have an opportunity to laugh at me part of the video, where you'll watch me struggle bust my way through trying to remove the analog stick in question. It isn't that hard. I followed all the tips that I could find, including applying solder and then removing solder with a solder sucker and then pulling on the other side, and I just couldn't get the analog stick to remove. And it's at that point that I decided to resort to violence. I got out my flush cutters and I just dismantled the entire potentiometer stick from the other side. Just broke it into pieces so that I could remove each pin one by one. After I did that, still couldn't get the new stick to go in because there was residual solder left in the holes. So I laid it up on its side and then sucked that solder through it. And through that roughly hour-long process, I discovered what I think is the actual easiest method and the best way to remove any potentiometer stick, whether it's PlayStation 5, whether it is Xbox, no matter what you have at home, and no matter what reason you're watching this video, I'm telling you, what I'm going to show you in just a minute is the easiest way to get these sticks out, as long as you're careful, because if you get in a hurry, you will damage the motherboard. So we're going to jump ahead to that point, and I'll tell you how I think you actually should get these things out. So if you have a pair of flush cutters, that is by far the easiest way to take these things apart. If you're not sure what a pair of flush cutters are, these guys right here. You can get a bunch of them for like 20 bucks on Amazon, or you can get them at your local, I don't know, card shop, Hobby Lobby, any kind of craft store usually has them. They're basically wire cutters, but they're completely flat on one side, which is very important for what we're going to do. What you're going to do is pop the potentiometers off and then go along the edge of the analog stick and snap it into 4 pieces. Those 4 pieces correspond to the anchor point on the other side of the motherboard. That's really the only thing that's holding the analog stick in. Once you get those popped and moved away, you can actually kind of gut the inside of the analog stick. There's not really anything holding the spring and the joystick itself in, so just pull that right out. And then take the flush cutters and put them along the underside of the analog stick and slowly snip away each pin. Do this slowly and carefully. They're flush, so it is possible to snip the pin without damaging the motherboard if you're careful. But if you turn your hand ever so slightly or put the point of that flush cutter on the motherboard itself, you do run the risk of scratching the motherboard and accidentally cutting a trace. These tend to not have any extra traces around them, but around the actual potentiometers themselves, those 3 ports are kind of close together. If you were to bridge one or break one, the stick may not work properly. If you're careful though, it is pretty easy to just snip each pin, and then from the other side of the motherboard, take your soldering iron, heat up the solder, and pull the pin out on the other side. Any residual solder can be removed with a solder sucker or solder wick in a similar fashion. I used my solder sucker. I heated up the motherboard on one side with the soldering iron, and then I sucked the solder through the opposite side of the motherboard and left a perfectly circular big hole that I was able to easily insert the new stick into. From this point, it's kind of just do the job in reverse. Flip it over, and the analog stick should, for the most part, hold itself in place, but I like to put my finger underneath it and just kind of make sure that it's completely seated. And then on the back side, flux those pins up. If you don't have flux, or if you've never used flux, let me make you a believer. The solder will go where the flux is on its own. Put flux on those pins. I, unfortunately, only have the type of flux that you have to put on with a brush, so mine's a little messy, but put flux on. It makes everything easier. Then just melt solder onto the tip of your soldering iron and touch the fluxed pin. Make sure you put enough solder on the tip of the soldering iron to completely cover the pin without globbing up or excess. This takes a little bit of practice, but it doesn't take too much to get it just right. Like, if you mess up the first one, you won't mess up the second one. And go around gently to each pin, make sure that they have a complete bead of solder. And once you do that, they're pretty much glued in place. You can't get them back out without repeating the beginning of this video. Move on to the next stick, do the same thing, and then you're pretty much done with the hardware portion. We're going to do everything that we did at the beginning of the video in reverse. Remember to solder back on those wires, put the screws back in the right place, put the battery back on, push the ribbon cables back together. I don't think I need to walk you through that. Just everything you did, do it backwards, and then we'll get into the software to make sure that the sticks perform properly. Okay, now that your controller is put back together, go ahead and bring it to your PC, plug it into a USB-C cable, and then go on Google Chrome to DualShock-Tools.github.io. And yes, Google Chrome matters. I tried it with a few other web browsers and it didn't work. Once you're there, this is what you're going to see. You'll see Sony DualSense controller connected, and this is basically an analog tester. Like, as I'm doing things, you can see 100% here, 100% here. All of our buttons are working. Even if you're not doing this mod, if you just want a way to test your controller, this is great. But you'll see that the sticks, I've done this already once, but I'm doing it again for the sake of the video right now. You'll see there's my stick circularity, and you'll see that my sticks are not perfectly dead zoned. There is a little bit of drift. This is how you fix that. You want to calibrate stick center. Once you do that, there'll be a wizard. You just hit start and follow the prompts. So please move both sticks to the top left corner. Do that, and then release and click continue. Next is going to be top right. Do that, release, continue. Bottom left, do that, release, continue, and then bottom right, release, and continue. And once you do that, click done, and we are good with that. Now you see how we're still kind of doing something here. We're going to have to work with that. That's at 10 times zoom, but if you look at normal, we're in the center now. These sticks are very, very sensitive, which is why you're seeing this here. That is literally just the weight of the sticks because I'm holding it up like this. If I move it back so that gravity isn't pulling on the stick, it's perfectly fine. But as soon as gravity starts pulling on the stick, isn't that crazy? They're super sensitive. You might want to adjust the dead zone if that's something that bothers you. I love how tight they are, and I'll show you why in a mini game in a minute. Next, you want to check circularity. So we're going to calibrate stick range. We don't want these guys to go out. See how that's going out past the circle? We really don't want that. Like, that's pretty bad right there. Pretty bad down here. That's not what we want to see. So let's go ahead and calibrate stick range. Do that. And then the controller is now sampling data. So rotate the stick slowly at least 2 times in one direction and then 2 times in the other. So we're going to start right here. We're just going to slowly rotate. Look, it's picking up on what it's doing. It's going to try to pull that back in. The name of the game here is slow, my friends. Slow. It's going to feel monotonous. It's going to feel crazy. But that's what you want to do. There's a quarter of the way there. We're going to do it again. Let it get all the data it needs. And then we're going to do it the opposite direction. The other way. Even right now in this tutorial, one of my fingers wants to move faster than the other. It doesn't matter. They don't have to be perfectly in line. They just need to be slow enough that the computer can read all of the data as effectively as possible to correct the circularity. Almost done. Boom. And now that we're at 100%, we'll click done. Now let's look at our circularity. Up at the top, look at that. Much, much better. That is within spec of an actual, like, brand new DualSense controller. But we're still not done. You need to save the changes permanently. Don't miss this step. Save changes permanently. It will actually put it into the firmware of the controller, and then you're done. Then you're done. You're good to go. All right. Maybe I should stop saying over it. That really messes with the prettiness. I really do think it's one of the prettiest themes in the game, though. All right, let's lock in. Now it's 2 hands. Four, 1, 2, 3. Ba-da-da-da-da. So pretty. So pretty. So pretty. I did not miss it. It did it again. You guys saw me hit that, didn't you? You saw me hit that. I might as well finish So yeah, except for that one time when the analog stick didn't work, it certainly wasn't me. They're actually very tight and they're awesome. And also, Tifa's theme is beautiful. That's all there is. I hope that that is helpful for you guys. If you think that you want to try this out, I'll have everything linked. It's not affiliated. I'm not an Amazon affiliate. So maybe say thank you and support by liking that video, remember, or subscribing to the channel. We're really, really close to 1,000. This is a little bit different than the way that my videos normally work. I just think this is so easy and obtainable in a world where drift is all over the place. I kind of just want to share with you guys how to fix it. And then I've been sick, so it was a little on the easy side. Anyway, really cool thing that I can't wait to show you guys in 2 weeks that I 3D printed and soldered together, and it's really freaking cool, and I'm super excited about it. Thank you, members. Literally am so grateful for the support that you guys show. Right now, our giant pumpkin member, Loki Rampage, appreciate you so much. Guys, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Sorry this was a day late. Hope you have the absolute best new year so far. I hope it's continuing to be great. And I will see you all in the next video. See ya.